I'm Belinda, and I'm a journalist. The first time I found myself on dialysis, I was 16 years old. I've been back on dialysis now since 2018. I got sick at 15 in Nigeria. I had typhoid fever, but for some reason, it just kept changing into different things. One day it's typhoid, the other day I've got stomach ulcer, and by the time someone figured out what was actually wrong, at this point I'm 16 years old, it was actually renal failure. It has been an interesting journey. It has been tasking, daunting, exhausting, very painful, and I think it's crucial for me to say that physical pain has been a big part of my life since I was 15 years old. I mean, that's the first time I felt sick, and then being diagnosed at 16 with end-stage renal failure, which means my kidneys were never gonna work again, and then being put on dialysis. And for a 16-year-old, you actually have no idea what's happening. And in this particular instance, then I was living in Nigeria. Nobody explained everything to me. I just remember being poked and cut and in so much pain, but nobody took the time to really talk to me about what was happening. And in my own way, I had to develop my own coping mechanisms. And dialysis itself is very, very time consuming. Going to the hospital at the moment is like, it's like going to work or an appointment that is going to be the whole day. And it's tough for me anyway. It's hard, but whether I like it or not, I've got to get on top of it. So on the whole, it has been very difficult. Mentally, emotionally, it has been tasking. I'm very grateful that I'm in a space where I have access to treatment, but it doesn't negate or take away from the challenges that imposes on your life. And in a way, you have to adhere to all of the restrictions, the fluid restriction, the renal, the diet restriction. I wouldn't call the diet restrictive, more, it's a diet that is tailored to help you stay alive for much longer. I have had 2 transplants. I had my first transplant when I was 22 years old because I started dialysis when I was 16. And it was a beautiful experience the first time. I remember waking up and knowing that something was different. You just know that, yes, it's working, and that's great. And what that meant is I could go on and do the things that I wanted to do, like finally go to university, get my degree sorted. I even went on to work as a journalist, and I've been doing that since 2009. So it gave me the freedom that I didn't have when I was on dialysis, and that was great. Having said that, in 2012 I had a rejection episode. This is when your body rejects the organ. So what that meant is at some point I would have ended up with renal failure again. The second time around, as much as it was supposed to give me, this newness and this freedom and actually ensure I don't go back on dialysis, it started the journey back to dialysis. So it was a painful experience to have a transplant that didn't work. And so being back on dialysis, I remember the day, I was having the conversation with the doctor, and I knew that this is it. I am going back on dialysis today. And I just remember the tears streaming down my face, and I remember saying these words: this is never going to end, because at that point I was just emotionally exhausted. I was just so tired. Within the space of 6 months, I had 2 nephrectomies. The first one was to try and fix my transplant. Unfortunately, it didn't work, so they took out that kidney. The second nephrectomy was to remove one of the kidneys I was born with because it had a tumor on it. And by the time it was tested, it turned out it was cancer. I had renal cancer. It was growing. I don't know how long it had been there for, but what that means is when you have a situation like that, or when you're diagnosed with any form of renal cancer and you're a potential transplant candidate, they have to wait for a period of 2 to 3 years before they put you back on the list. It's simply a safety measure, and it's the protocol, and it's usually for your own safety. The first time I was on dialysis, my mom was alive, and my mom, she was my everything. She did everything. She was my, my support. She did you name it, she was there. It doesn't mean I've stopped dreaming or hoping or looking forward. If anything, it has also made me even more hungry for life and to do well with myself and actually try and push myself to do the things that, I had set out to do or I wanted to do. I don't feel different about transplants just because the second time around didn't work. It's unfortunate that it didn't work. It would have been great if it did, but it didn't. Nevertheless, it does not negate my belief in organ donation and the fact that more people need to be involved in the process and in the conversation around it, especially from the Black and ethnic minority community. Life is sacred, life is precious, and there's so much we can do for each other. There are different forms of organ donation: liver, heart, kidney. The things you never thought about. And people need to know that nobody's going to take your organs while you're still alive. There is a protocol in place to ensure that when you're the patient, when you're in critical care for one reason or the other, towards the end of life, if that be the case, that at that point in time, you, the patient, are the priority for the medical team looking after you to save your life. That's number one. And in the UK, that's practiced to the letter. Nobody's going to harvest your organs if you're still alive or you have a fighting chance to survive whatever it is you're dealing with. We are all we've got. We are the solution to the problem, and that's why we need to keep talking about it.